The descent module rattled violently as it plunged through the atmosphere of Proxima Centauri b, its heat shields glowing cherry red. Inside, diplomat Elijah Caron gripped the safety harness, his knuckles white. The mission was simple: establish peaceful first contact with the Azuri, the enigmatic beings who had sent cryptic signals to Earth for the past decade. Proximity alert, the AI announced with maddening calm. Unknown vessels approaching. Before Elijah could respond, a blinding flash erupted outside his viewport. The module's systems flickered and died, plunging him into darkness as the craft began to tumble uncontrollably. His last conscious thought was a bitter realization: someone had deliberately sabotaged the mission. When Elijah awoke, he found himself secured to a reclined chair in a chamber of flowing, organic architecture. The walls pulsed with bioluminescence, casting everything in a haunting blue glow. He tested his restraints, firm but not painful, designed to immobilize rather than harm. The specimen is conscious, a melodic voice announced from somewhere beyond his field of vision. Elijah's translator implant rendered the alien language into English with only a slight delay. "I am not a specimen," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "I am diplomat Elijah Caron of Earth, on a peaceful mission of contact." A figure stepped into view, and Elijah's breath caught in his throat. The Azuri before him stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent indigo skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. 4 arms emerged gracefully from a torso protected by what appeared to be a living, symbiotic armor. But it was the being's face that captivated him, delicately structured with large, almond-shaped eyes of liquid silver that reflected the room's light like twin moons. "I am Commander Nixera," the Azuri said, Chief Intelligence Officer of the Imperial Guard. "And you, human, are a liar." Nixera moved closer, her movements fluid and precise. "Our surveillance detected your kind's attempts to map our defense grid. Your peaceful signals contained embedded code designed to infiltrate our communication network." "That's impossible," Elijah protested. "Our message protocols were transparent, designed specifically to..." Silence. Nixera raised one of her 4 hands. "Your species' capacity for deception is remarkable, but ultimately futile. The Empress has authorized me to extract all necessary information from you regarding Earth's military capabilities and invasion timeline." Elijah felt a chill run down his spine. "There is no invasion. Earth seeks peaceful cooperation. Someone has misinterpreted or deliberately manipulated our communications." Nixera tilted her head, studying him with unsettling intensity. "Interesting. Your physiological responses suggest genuine confusion, yet our intelligence is quite clear." She activated a holographic display, showing fragments of Earth's transmissions, but with strange alterations Elijah didn't recognize. "Those aren't our original messages," he said, leaning forward against his restraints. "They've been tampered with." "A convenient claim," Nixera replied, though something in her voice suggested a flicker of doubt. "We shall see what truth lies within your mind soon enough." She approached a console, her fingers dancing across symbols that pulsed in response to her touch. "The Azuri Empire has survived for 12 millennia by identifying threats before they materialize. Your kind represents the first potential rival we've encountered in generations. We could be partners instead of rivals," Elijah offered. "There's room enough in this galaxy for both our species to thrive." Nixera's silver eyes narrowed. "Naive sentiment. Power recognizes only power, diplomat. My duty is to ensure the survival of my people, by any means necessary." The room's lighting shifted to a deeper violet as a humming began to emanate from the walls themselves. Elijah felt a subtle pressure building behind his eyes, the first gentle probe of the Azuri's legendary psychic interrogation. "Your resistance is admirable," Nixera observed as Elijah winced, "but ultimately futile. By the time I finish with you, I will know every secret your world holds, and you will beg to tell me more." Despite his fear, Elijah met her gaze steadily. "Then you'll learn the truth. We came in peace. Nixera's expression remained unreadable, but for a moment, just a moment, Elijah thought he detected a hint of curiosity beneath her imperial confidence. "We shall see," she whispered, as the psychic pressure intensified. "We shall see." The interrogation chamber had become Elijah's entire world. Days blended together under the pulsing violet light as Nixera systematically attempted to dismantle his mental defenses. Her psychic probes had grown increasingly sophisticated, no longer crude battering rams against his consciousness but subtle infiltrations designed to slip past his awareness. "Your resilience is unexpected," Nixera admitted, her silvery eyes studying him with clinical fascination. She circled his chair, all four arms clasped behind her back. "Most species break within hours. You've endured 5 cycles. Disappointed?" Elijah asked, his voice hoarse. Despite his exhaustion, he managed a weak smile. "Intrigued," she corrected, leaning closer. Her scent reminded him of ozone and exotic spices. "Your mind has an unusual architecture. When I press against one defensive structure, another forms. It's almost playful." Elijah hadn't expected this approach. In his diplomatic training, he'd been taught that vulnerability sometimes created unexpected connections. "My grandmother raised me. She survived a war, taught me that when everything is taken from you, your mind remains your own." Something flickered across Nixera's face, recognition, perhaps. She touched a control panel, and Elijah's restraints loosened slightly. "You require sustenance," she stated, offering a crystalline container of luminescent liquid. When Elijah hesitated, she sighed. "If I wished to poison you, diplomat, I would not need such crude methods." He drank cautiously. The liquid tasted like honey and starlight, instantly revitalizing him. "Tell me about these wars, your kind wages," Nixera said, settling into a floating chair that materialized beside him. "Our intelligence suggests humans constantly destroy each other. Yet you claim to come in peace." "We've learned from our mistakes," Elijah explained. "Our history is bloody, yes, but we've grown. The First Contact Initiative represents our best selves, not our worst." Nixera's eyes narrowed. "An appealing narrative. Yet you arrived with shielded communications arrays and scanning technology. Standard diplomatic protocol. We were vulnerable, entering unknown territory." Without warning, Nixera placed one of her hands against his temple. Elijah gasped as images flooded his mind, not the invasive probing of previous sessions, but something more intimate. She was sharing memories of her own. He saw the Azuri homeworld through her eyes, breathtaking crystal cities suspended between mountains. He felt her fierce pride, her unwavering devotion to her people, and beneath it all, a loneliness that mirrored his own. When the connection broke, they were both breathing heavily. "You weren't expecting that," she said softly. "No," he admitted. "Nor was I expecting this." She gestured to a holographic display showing his brain activity. "When I shared my memories, your mind responded with empathy, not strategic calculation. You felt concern for me." Elijah didn't deny it. "Empathy isn't weakness, Commander. It's how we understand each other." Nixera turned away, her iridescent skin flushing slightly darker. "The Empress expects results. Your invasion plans." "There are no invasion plans," Elijah interrupted. "And I think you're beginning to believe that." The commander was silent for a long moment. "Rest," she finally said. "Tomorrow we try something different." As she reached the doorway, Elijah called after her. "Commander. I felt your loneliness. It's not so different from mine." Nixera paused but didn't turn around. "Sleep, diplomat. Your mind will need its strength." After she departed, Elijah sank back, processing what had just occurred. The exchange had been unexpected, almost intimate. For the first time since his capture, he felt something beyond fear, a dangerous, fragile hope that perhaps understanding was possible after all. Elijah awoke to find his restraints completely removed. The interrogation chamber had been transformed, the harsh lighting replaced with a warmer glow, and the clinical architecture softened with what appeared to be living plants that pulsed gently with bioluminescence. A gesture of trust, Nixera explained as she entered. She wore different attire today, her military uniform replaced by flowing robes that emphasized the graceful contours of her form. Though escape would be impossible regardless. I appreciate the sentiment, Elijah replied, stretching his stiff muscles. Though I'm curious about the change in approach. Nixera gestured, and a three-dimensional star map materialized between them. Your mind continues to resist traditional methods. I've been authorized to try cultural exchange instead. Her four hands moved through the hologram, highlighting various star systems. Show me Earth's position. Elijah hesitated only briefly before pointing to a small, unremarkable star. Sol. Third planet. Nixera's expression remained neutral, but Elijah sensed her surprise. So distant from the galactic core. Isolated. She studied him with renewed interest. Perhaps this explains your species' resilience, and paranoia. We prefer to call it caution, Elijah corrected gently. May I? He gestured to the hologram. She nodded, and he manipulated the display to zoom in on Earth. Beautiful, Nixera whispered, her fingers hovering near the blue-green sphere. Like a water jewel. It is, Elijah agreed, unexpectedly moved by her reaction. What about your homeworld? The map shifted, revealing a magnificent ringed planet orbiting a binary star system. Azure Prime, she said, unmistakable pride in her voice. The cradle of our civilization. For hours, they exchanged knowledge, Earth's diverse ecosystems, Azuri technological achievements, the cultural histories of both species. The formal interrogation had transformed into something approaching genuine dialogue. During a discussion of music, Nixera hesitantly shared a recording of an Azuri composition, haunting tones that seemed to phase in and out of human hearing range. In return, Elijah hummed a simple Earth melody. To his astonishment, Nixera's skin began to pulse in rhythm with his song, her natural bioluminescence responding to the vibrations. That's remarkable, he said when he finished. Music is one of our most sacred arts, she explained. Our bodies are instruments themselves. She moved closer, studying him intently. May I? When Elijah nodded, she placed one hand gently on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Her touch sent a strange, pleasant warmth spreading through him. Your rhythm is compelling, she murmured. Different from ours, yet harmonious in its own way. The moment lingered, charged with something neither of them had anticipated. Elijah became acutely aware of her proximity, the subtle patterns flowing beneath her indigo skin, the scent that reminded him of thunderstorms and exotic blooms. Abruptly, Nixera withdrew her hand and stepped back. This approach is proving effective, she said, her professional tone returning. Your psychological profile is becoming clearer. Is that all this is to you? Elijah asked quietly. Just another interrogation technique? Nixera's silver eyes met his, and for a moment, her carefully controlled expression faltered. What it is becoming, concerns me, she admitted. I have a duty to my empress, to my people. And if your duty conflicts with the truth? With what you're beginning to discover about humans? The truth is rarely simple, diplomat. She moved toward the exit, but paused to look back at him. But I find myself increasingly eager to discover it. After she left, Elijah remained still, his hand resting where hers had been moments before. Something fundamental had shifted between them, a connection forming that transcended their roles as captive and captor, a bridge between worlds that neither had anticipated building. Alarms shattered the tranquility of Elijah's chamber, pulsing crimson light replacing the gentle ambient glow. He tensed, preparing for guards, but instead, Nixera burst through the doorway, her military attire hastily donned, her expression taut with urgency. "We have little time," she said, tossing him what appeared to be an Azuri communication device. "The political situation has deteriorated." "What's happening?" Elijah asked, catching the device. "War Minister Draxol has convinced the Empress that immediate action against Earth is necessary." Her voice remained controlled, but Elijah detected genuine fear beneath it. "He's presented evidence that Earth is developing weapons specifically designed to target Azuri physiology." "That's absurd," Elijah protested. "We barely understand your biology, let alone how to weaponize against it." "I know," Nixera replied, surprising him. "The evidence is too convenient, too perfectly aligned with Draxol's long-standing desire for expansion." She approached closer, lowering her voice. "For 20 cycles, I've served the Imperial intelligence with absolute loyalty. Now I find myself questioning everything." The vulnerability in her admission stunned Elijah. "What changed?" Nixera's gaze met his, intense and unguarded. "You," she said simply. "Your mind contains no deception about invasion plans. Either you are the most sophisticated psychological operative ever encountered, or we truly came in peace," Elijah finished. "Yes." Her 4 hands moved restlessly. "My role has always been to identify threats to the Empire. What if the greatest threat now comes from within?" The alarms intensified. Nixera activated a security panel, buying them more time. "The war fleet mobilizes within hours. Draxol has ordered your immediate execution and dissection to extract weapon-resistant genetic material." Elijah felt sick. "How can I help?" "I need to know everything, Elijah," she said, using his given name for the first time. "Everything about Earth's defenses, capabilities, vulnerabilities. Not to exploit them, to save your people." Their eyes locked in a moment of silent communication, implicit understanding passing between them. This was the ultimate test of trust. "Computer, authorization Karen Alpha 7, Elijah said clearly. The communication device activated, revealing classified defense protocols he'd been entrusted with as a diplomatic failsafe. For an hour, they worked feverishly, Elijah revealing Earth's defensive capabilities while Nixera mapped Azuri attack strategies. Their hands brushed repeatedly as they manipulated holographic displays, each contact sending electricity through them both. "This could be seen as treason," Nixera said softly during a pause. "For both of us. Or the salvation of both our species," Elijah countered. "Your war minister is manufacturing conflict for his own advancement." Nixera moved to stand before him, her tall form radiant with inner light. "Why trust me with this? I've spent weeks attempting to break your mind." Elijah stepped closer, eliminating the remaining distance between them. "Because you could have broken me physically at any time. You chose understanding instead." Something shifted in her silver eyes. Without warning, she drew him against her, 2 of her arms encircling his waist while another gently cradled his head. Their foreheads touched in an Azuri gesture of profound intimacy. "What I feel for you defies all rational protocol," she whispered, her bioluminescence pulsing rapidly. "It endangers everything I've sworn to protect." "Yet here we are," Elijah replied, his hands finding the contours of her face. Their lips met, alien yet familiar, different yet perfectly aligned. The kiss deepened, transcending their biological differences in a moment of connection neither had imagined possible. Her skin emitted waves of light that seemed to flow into him, while his heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of her bioluminescence. The moment was shattered by the chamber door sliding open. War Minister Draxol stood in the entrance, flanked by elite guards, his expression a mask of calculated triumph. "Commander Nixera," he said coldly, "you are relieved of duty. The human specimen will be processed immediately." Nixera straightened to her full height, positioning herself protectively between Elijah and the newcomers. "Minister Draxol, I have discovered evidence of deliberate manipulation of Earth's communications. This human speaks truth, there is no invasion plan. Your judgment is compromised, Commander, Draxol replied, his eyes flicking meaningfully to the intimate scene he had interrupted. Guards, seize them both. The commander will face imperial justice for her contamination. As the guards advanced, Nixera and Elijah exchanged a single glance, a silent promise that what they had begun would not end here. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The imperial throne room soared hundreds of feet upward, its crystal spires capturing and refracting the light of twin suns. Elijah stood before the Empress of the Azuri Empire, still bearing the marks of his recent ordeal. Beside him, Nixera maintained perfect military posture despite the ceremonial restraints binding her 4 arms, a symbolic gesture for a tribunal of this magnitude. Unprecedented, the Empress stated, her voice resonating through the vast chamber. Unlike other Azuri, her skin shimmered with pure white luminescence. Never in 12 millennia has an imperial commander chosen a foreign species' interests over her sworn duty. War Minister Draxol stepped forward, satisfaction evident in his bearing. The evidence is irrefutable, Your Radiance. Commander Nixera has been compromised by human manipulation techniques. I recommend immediate silence, the Empress commanded, her gaze fixed on the data crystal Elijah and Nixera had prepared during their brief time together. This evidence suggests it is you who have manipulated communications, Minister. Fabricating casus belli for a war that would benefit only your personal ambitions. Draxol's confidence faltered. Your Radiance, surely you don't believe. I believe what I see, the Empress interrupted, rising from her crystalline throne. And what I see is a human who willingly shared his world's vulnerabilities, not to surrender, but to prove peaceful intent. She approached Elijah, studying him with ancient eyes. And I see a loyal commander who recognized truth, even when it appeared in an unexpected form. With a gesture, she released Nixera's ceremonial bonds. Commander, you are reinstated, with new purpose. You will establish a permanent diplomatic channel with Earth. Minister Draxol will be investigated for high treason against the Empire. As Imperial guards escorted the protesting minister away, the Empress addressed the assembled court. For too long, we have viewed the cosmos as a place of potential threats. Perhaps it is time to consider potential alliances instead. The formal proceedings concluded, but the Empress requested Elijah and Nixera remain. When they were alone, her formal demeanor softened slightly. Your connection is evident, she said, looking between them. Unprecedented, yet perhaps precisely what both our worlds need. Nixera bowed deeply. Your Radiance, I cannot deny what has formed between us. It defies explanation. Does it? The ancient sovereign seemed almost amused. The universe rarely creates impossibilities without purpose. She turned to Elijah. Diplomat Karen, would you consent to serve as Earth's permanent ambassador to our empire? It would be my honor, Elijah replied, overwhelmed by the implications. Then it is settled. You will both oversee the new diplomatic exchange initiative. The Empress's eyes twinkled with unexpected warmth. Your unique bond may well become the template for a new form of interspecies relations. After the Empress departed, Elijah and Nixera found themselves alone in a royal antechamber, the reality of their survival and newfound purpose still sinking in. I never imagined this outcome when I first brought you aboard as my prisoner, Nixera admitted, her 4 hands gently enfolding his 2. I never imagined feeling at home light years from Earth, Elijah responded, drawing her closer. Their foreheads touched in the Azuri gesture of profound connection. Nixera's skin illuminated with patterns of joy and desire that Elijah was only beginning to understand. His fingers traced the contours of light flowing beneath her indigo skin, eliciting a soft gasp. We have much to learn of each other still, she whispered against his lips. A lifetime to discover, he agreed. Their kiss deepened as the twin suns of Azura Prime set beyond the crystal spires, bathing them in amber light. What had begun as interrogation had transformed into something revolutionary, a bridge between worlds, forged not through diplomatic protocols or strategic necessity, but through the most unexpected and powerful force in any galaxy, the connection of two souls who recognized themselves in each other, despite every difference. In the growing darkness, Nyxera's natural bioluminescence enveloped them both in a private universe of gentle light, no longer captor and prisoner, but pioneers of a new kind of understanding between their worlds.